Buongiorno tutti quanti, benvenuti a lezione 16 di Italian for Beginners. Sono Dana Scheider e sono l'insegnante di questo corso. Aspetto ancora il nuovo libro, quindi oggi continuiamo col vecchio. Vi parlerò degli aggettivi italiani, cosa sono, come si usano e quali sono i cambiamenti necessari per fare l'accordo in genere e numero con il sostantivo. Cominciamo con il dialogo a pagina 50. Io lo leggo e voi cercate di capire. C'è una traduzione nel libro, ma cercate di capire più o meno quello che dicono questi personaggi senza leggerla. Se non capite alcune parole va bene, nessun problema. Carlo, come si chiama tua sorella? Maria. Si chiama Tina. Carlo, com'è? Maria, è simpatica, intelligente e sportiva. E tuo fratello com'è? Carlo, si chiama Lorenzo. Lui è molto carino, ma è un po' timido. Allora, siccome parliamo degli aggettivi, eccoli. These are the adjectives. So these are the words that we're going to be talking about in this lesson and that we want to pay particular attention to. So just take a look at those and kind of see how they're used. In questa lezione, come ho detto nel video precedente, si parla delle domande com'è e come sono. Queste domande ci chiedono di descrivere qualcuno o qualcosa. A descrivere qualcosa bisogna utilizzare aggettivi. So what are adjectives? An adjective describes a person, place, or thing. A noun, in other words. The noun that's described by an adjective, or as people say, modified by an adjective, can be a concrete, abstract, or implied thing. So these examples, Susie is interesting. A person, pretty concrete. On the other hand, you can also say that idea is interesting. And an idea is abstract. On the other hand, you could also say just, it's interesting. And the noun that interesting then modifies is implied. All of these also exist in Italian, and we're going to talk in this chapter a little bit more about how you use them. Another thing about adjectives is that they can either directly modify a noun, like it's a red book, or it can be part of a predicate, meaning that it comes after is or are, as in the book is red. In some languages, there are grammatical differences in adjectives that directly modify a noun or those that are part of a predicate, but in Italian, good news, they're treated the same. So that's just kind of a point of interest, I guess. Adjectives themselves can also be either concrete or abstract. So like the brick building, that's pretty concrete. It's a building, it's made of bricks. On the other hand, if we say something like the imminent crisis, that's more abstract. How do you visualize imminent? So adjectives can be a couple of different things. And additionally, there are some adjectives that we don't usually think of as adjectives, that don't usually come to mind as describing kinds of words. This is an incomplete list, but these include other, many, few, several, more, same, those kind of things. And as you may notice, these are very common. So, adjectives in Italian. Adjectives in Italian have gender and number just like we discussed with nouns. every adjective has to share the gender and number of the noun or nouns that it modifies. This is called agreement in gender and number. The adjectives have to agree with the nouns they modify. You'll find that the rules for forming the correct gender and number of an adjective are going to be a little familiar if you've watched the lessons about nouns. The endings are pretty similar. If an adjective modifies a mixture of masculine and feminine nouns or a mixed gender group, then the masculine plural form is used. So, la professoressa e lo studente sono bravi. As we're going to see in the next slide, that would be the masculine plural of bravo. So here are the endings. There are two different kinds of adjectives in Italian. Those that end in o in the masculine singular and those that end in e in the masculine singular. The ones that end in o have 4 possible endings. Those are o in the masculine singular, e in the masculine plural, a in the feminine singular, and e in the feminine plural. So I've used the example of bravo for this category of adjectives. So you would say un ragazzo bravo, due ragazzi bravi, una ragazza brava, or due ragazze brave. Nouns that end in e in the masculine singular don't differentiate between masculine and feminine in the same way. The masculine and feminine forms are the same. It's just whether it's singular or plural. So this is kind of similar to nouns, where nouns that end in e can be either masculine or feminine, except for adjectives. Adjectives that end in e are both masculine and feminine. So you would say un ragazzo divertente, due ragazzi divertenti, una ragazza divertente, due ragazze divertenti. So there are a few details here. Adjectives that end in ka, ga, and go add an H in the plural after the C or G to preserve the hard C or G sound. That's a spelling change because of what we discussed about a C or G that ends with, or that's followed by an E or an E sound automatically becomes a ch or a j. So in these cases, the H is added to make sure that it's still pronounced with a k or a g. So ubriaca, drunk, becomes ubriache. Larga, which means wide, becomes larghe. And largo, which is the masculine form of wide, becomes larghi in the plural. In general, when an adjective ends in io, it will only have one I in the masculine plural. So vecchio becomes vecchi. There are a couple of exceptions to this, and it's usually pretty obvious what they are because usually the word stress is different, so a different syllable is emphasized, and so we'll talk about that later. But usually when you have an adjective that ends in io, it'll only have one I. So vecchi, grigi, etc. It's important to note that adjectives match the gender and number, but not always the form of the nouns they modify. So you can say, sì, una donna canadese. Donna is feminine singular, and canadese is also feminine singular, but they don't both end with an a. Same with due belle città. In this case, città, the noun city, is feminine plural because there are due. Città doesn't change in the singular or the plural, but you can tell that in this case it's plural because of the due. And belle is also feminine plural here, but does not have the same ending as città. So keep that in mind as you're using adjectives, that it's pretty common that the gender and number will be the same between the adjective and the noun, but the forms may look different and sound different. Let's talk about molto. Molto is an important adjective and adverb, and I want to talk briefly about the difference between adjectives and adverbs in case this isn't a concept you've been exposed to before. So there are a few different things you can describe, right? You can describe a thing, that's the most obvious, like a red carpet or whatever. You can also describe an adjective itself, like the degree to which an adjective is the way it is. The carpet is very red implies maybe it's a deeper red, so very in that case is an adverb, and in fact is the adverb we're talking about right now. An adverb can also be used to describe an action. So I walked quickly. Quickly would be the adverb that describes my action. So molto can be an adjective or an adverb, and how you use it differs depending on which it is. So as an adjective, it means much or many. So ho molta fame. I have a lot of hunger. I'm very hungry, we would say in English. I have a lot of hunger. Or we can also say ci sono molti studenti nella classe. There are many students in the class, or you might translate it more idiomatically as there are a lot of students in the class. As an adverb, molto means very or a lot, so it has a similar meaning. So Luisa è molto bella means Luisa is very beautiful. Or you could say Carlo e Giovanna studiano molto, and that means they study a lot. So when molto is an adjective, it agrees in gender and number with the noun it modifies. When it's used as an adverb, it does not change form. It stays molto in all cases as an adjective or as an adverb. That's the same with other adverbs in Italian. Adverbs never change form to match a noun because adverbs don't modify nouns. So if you're working with molto and you can't tell what noun it should be agreeing with, just consider the fact that perhaps it's not going to agree with a noun in this case. Perhaps what it's modifying is a verb or another adjective. The last topic for this lesson is the suffix issimo. Issimo is the same as molto, so you can say things a couple different ways. You can say Carla è molto brava, or you can say Carla è bravissima, and those mean the same thing. You can say gli spaghetti sono buonissimi, or you can say gli spaghetti sono molto buoni, and both of those mean that the spaghetti are good. Issimo makes the same changes as other adjective endings to match the gender and number, so it acts just like any other adjective with a masculine singular that ends in O. So you'll see issima, issimi, issime, and obviously issimo as well. The subject the suffix rather is attached to the stem of the adjective, what's called the stem of the adjective, which is the part that comes before the ending. So in most cases that's just going to be chopping off the last vowel and sticking issimo on there. So bravo, the stem is then brav and it becomes bravissimo. Gentile has the stem gentil and it becomes gentilissimo. I wanted to call your attention to stanco, and it's a little bit different, and it follows the same rule as other adjectives with C's or G's. So you can see that in order to keep the C hard, again, we want it to be stanchissimo, not stancissimo. And so to keep it stanchissimo, this H gets added in there. And that's the same if you take an adjective like largo, you'll put an H after the G, so it becomes larghissimo and not largissimo. And one last little usage note is that issimo replaces molto in a sentence. You can't use both. That's some toddler stuff. So you could say le ragazze sono belle o le ragazze sono molto belle, or you could say le ragazze sono bellissime, but you would never use the two together. All right, so that's it for this lesson. The homework are the esercizi a pagina 53. These exercises are in the old book, remember. And again, if you don't have the old book, I recommend not buying it. Just try to kind of read along in the slides and try and kind of get the gist if you don't have it. By the way, if you do have the old book, it's entirely possible that it will continue to work with the new lessons. I haven't actually had a chance to look at the new book and see how different it is. So when it does get here, I'll let you know how big the changes are, because it could be that the old one will still be suitable if you have it. So yeah, if you have the book, do the exercises. If not, don't worry too much about it. And as a preview of the next lesson we're going to talk about the very important topic of how you say is or are or to be in Italian. And this will include discussions on expressing where you're from, expressing who owns something, who possesses something. So that's going to be the next lesson. If you found this lesson useful, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss the next one. And I will see you on lesson 17.